Okay, what's up, all? This is Big Light. I'm in a 100 level pit here with the Quill Volley build. Just kind of showing you it's instantly killing everything. I made this video because I'm going to talk a little bit about Quill Volley versus Crushing Hand and kind of playing the meta broken things in the game. I do think this build is actually broken and bugged. I don't think Viscous Shield is working the way that it was intended to work. I'm not sure about Interdiction and redirected force. If they're intended to work that way, it is a lot of crit chance, but everything kind of working together is all feeding into each other. It seems like a few different things that are probably either overtuned or, in the case of Viscous Shield, actually not working as intended, to basically break a family of builds. Quill Volley is just the best version of a kind of family of builds. So I picked a level 100 pit because level 100 pits are the strongest enemies in the game. There's nothing I can think of off the top of my head that has as much health or hits as hard as a level 100 pit, except higher level pits, right? So this is the hardest stuff in the game. There's nothing kind of beyond this. You can do the rest of the game with builds that do less damage and are less tanky than this build very easily, right? So to push the higher level pits, you need, right now, either the Quill Volley Spiritborn or a character that's much better kind of optimized and geared than this character is, right? So you need to put a lot more time into optimization and gearing and that kind of thing to push those high level pits. Or right now you just play Spiritborn, you play the broken thing, and you can clear higher level pits with gear that is good but not fully optimized, right? So in these seasons, I really like to have one character that can farm hard like this, and one character that I have more fun with, like build crafting and playing around and things like that. In this case, that the character is going to be the Spiritborn in both cases, but different builds. This is the build that I'm going to push hard to farm on. Last season, I had an Andariel's Rogue that I was kind of using to farm materials and push really hard on and that kind of thing. And then I was playing a Pet Necromancer as a more fun build. Oh, I clicked the Spire there. I don't normally click those when I'm kind of trying to compare run timings between builds because they make you push faster, but in this case I'm killing everything instantly. It's not gonna matter between the builds. So I use one build to farm mats and stuff, and I use another build to have more fun using those mats and things like that. But in this situation where a Spiritborn build is farming insanely fast, it's really far over what we actually need for any of the rewards in the game. There's no, you get extra XP for a higher pit, but there's no other reward to it. Okay, so there's no reason to be doing like overkill damage on a level 100 pit. If you're clearing a level 100 pit quickly, your damage is high enough. You don't need any more. There's no reason to play a build that's even stronger than that, unless you just want to push higher level pits. You think that's fun. You're having a good time with that. Okay, so we're going in here to the boss. You're gonna see this is insane. I kill the boss in like 1 second, and we finish the run at what was the time? 11:44 left on the clock, which means it was a 3-minute and 16-second run. Okay, hilariously, about 1 second of that was killing the boss. And so now we're going to move over to Crushing Hand in a 100, and we're going to see that it's basically instantly killing everything still. Okay, we're still going really, really fast, and we're killing things in a big area around us instead of the kind of like shotgun arc thing that we had going with the Quill Volley. Okay. In Crushing Hand here, we actually have 2 damage instances. There's 2 circles, one from each of our hands, and they make a little Venn diagram, and when somebody's in the kind of overlapping area of that Venn diagram, they get hit by both, and so there's 2 damage instances, and you can see the numbers generally are bigger, but there's not as many of them. So we're doing less damage overall. We are. This is a lower DPS spec, but you can see it's still plenty high enough for 100. We're still crushing it, and with the 2 little damage instances, we're really just running around here, smashing, punching, beating guys off with both hands, right? Going really fast. And the AoE nature of the build makes it better when we don't need all that extra damage, right? So like I was saying in one of the other videos, if I know that every mob I'm going to be fighting, like the tankiest thing I'm going to fight has, say, 1 billion health, to use a round number, if I'm doing like 1.1 billion damage or 2 billion damage, a different build that can do 10 billion damage in one hit is not necessary, right? I'm not going to clear any faster because I was already one-shotting everything, right? That's kind of the case we're in here. I'm already killing things instantly with Crushing Hand in a level 100. So when I'm in a level 100, there's no additional benefit to using Quill Volley, okay? I'm not getting anything out of it. When I go over to something where things are more tanky, that changes, right? If I'm in a 120, that's different. If I'm in a 125, a 150, whatever, that's different. But when I'm in a 100, if I'm already killing things basically instantly, the extra damage of Quill Volley doesn't matter, okay? So that's kind of the case here. You can see I'm absolutely blasting through this with Crushing Hand. The AoE thing means that even though I'm not killing the mobs quite as fast as with Quill Volley, you did notice that they were dying a little bit faster, although these Knight guys are kind of the worst case role here. These guys are tankier than most other mobs when you get them. So that's kind of bad luck, but you do see, like, a lot of times I say I have to punch him twice, right? Or I have to hit him 3 or 4 times, whereas the Quill Volley, a lot of times it was 1 or 2 times that I had to click them, right? But I had to click in many directions, whereas this one, when I go into a big group of guys, I am killing all of them with basically all of the damage, right? Not everybody's in the overlapping part of the Venn diagram, but I am basically killing all of them, right? So we're getting to the boss in a better time than we had with Quill Volley because the AoE nature of the damage let us kill groups of guys faster. But you can see, now you're starting to see the damage difference, right? I'm killing the boss much slower than with Quill Volley, okay? But in the end, we end this run with 12:08 remaining, so it's a 2-minute, 52-second run. It's around 20 seconds faster than the Quill Volley run, even though we're doing less damage, okay? And it comes down to, I don't need all that damage in a 100, it's overkill. So to kind of make that point more clear, I have the Crushing Hand build here in a 120, and that's illustrating what I'm talking about with the damage. In 100, the 2 builds finish in the same amount of time, right? 20 seconds is kind of within air for these things. There's some randomness in how long it takes to do a run, that kind of thing. So 20 seconds, they're doing it in the same amount of time. 120, if you watched the video the other day in the 120 with Quill Volley, I was blasting a 120 with Quill Volley, okay? Annihilating it. With the Crushing Hand build here, you see that is not the case, right? And that's not the case because basically every enemy in this 120 is stronger than the boss was in a 100, okay? He has more health and in a lot of cases does more damage than the boss does. Not everything's doing more damage, but basically everything in here has more health, right? And some of the mobs are doing more damage even than the boss was in a 100, okay? So that is making it where you can see with on the timer, I'm not going to make it, right? I'm not going to finish this 120 with Crushing Hand like I did with Quill Volley. Now, if I keep optimizing the character, if I keep going further, if I get mythics on it, that kind of thing, Crushing Hand can probably do a 120, right? But as the character is right now, I'm not going to make it, okay? The timer is too close to my clear, and I'm not going to have time to kill the boss, because you know if it's taking me this long to kill the mobs, that we're not going to be able to kill the boss, okay? Not in time, right? There's no reason we can't kill it. You can see we're very tanky, but it's going to take way too long. We're not going to make it in time. Okay, so with the pits, all we're seeing here is a multiplier on the health and damage of the mobs, okay? They're not adding anything. There's no new mechanics. There's nothing like interesting going on. They just have some multipliers in the code, and they get applied in like a kind of, I want to say like exponential or power law type of fashion in some way that basically makes it so that these pits, and I noticed especially after 100, they really ramp up, okay? The health of the mobs really, really ramps up. So you need tons and tons of damage to be able to make it in time, okay? But there's nothing else going on. There's no mechanics or anything like that. So if you can't do these higher level pits, you're really not missing out on anything by not pushing these, okay? It's just like a lower level pit, except you just have to have more damage to be able to clear it, okay? As far as rewards, like I was saying, there's a little more XP maybe in a higher level pit, but it's not worth it because it takes longer to kill it, right? And as far as upgrading your glyphs and things like that, which is what we do in the pits now this season, you don't get any better like upgrade chance on your glyphs, right? So when you go above, I think a 91, it drops your upgrade chances like 70%. In a 100 to upgrade a glyph that's like 91 or higher. That doesn't ever change. So if you do like a 125, it's still 70% chance to work above 91, right? So you're kind of, that proc chance caps out. There's really nothing gained by doing over 100, except just like seen how much damage the character does, right? These are the only places where there's mobs that are strong enough to actually test your damage once your damage reaches a certain point. So this is where Quill Volley really matters and where it really shines. When I was doing the 120, you saw a lot bigger numbers because the mobs could live long enough for me to hit them that hard. In the 100, I didn't see as big a numbers with the Quill Volley build because the mobs just didn't live long enough, right? I was just killing them too fast to even build up a number that's like 2 or 3 trillion, okay? So if I go back to Crushing Hand, which I'm playing here, it can't do the 120. It doesn't have enough damage. But it does still have absurd damage. We just watched it clear a 100 faster than Quill Volley. And outside of the pit, in all of the rest of the game, all of the other content that you might want to play, all the things you could have fun doing, Crushing Hands is going to be better, okay? Because the AoE nature of it makes it clear things faster. You're going to one-shot everything because each of these clicks hits nice and hard. And so anything where the mobs are any weaker than a level 100 dungeon, Crushing Hands is better. At some level of pit, sorry, I said dungeon, pit. At some level of pit, Quill Volley and Crushing Hands are going to be about the same. On this character, the way it's geared right now, that's about a 100. Depending on your gear, that's going to be a different level. For me, it's about a 100 right now, which is really convenient, a nice round number. Maybe it's slightly higher than that, but the 100 you could see, they were about the same, okay? And then higher level pits, it's going to be Quill Volley, right? So if you want to play all of the rest of the game other than the high level pits, and if you want to use a Spiritborn build to like farm materials or farm experience or farm whatever, Crushing Hands is actually better than Quill Volley because you're going to be able to clear that stuff faster due to the AoE style of the damage versus the kind of shotgun thing that Quill Volley had going on, okay? So better is interesting because it depends on what you're talking about. Well, when is it better? High level pits, Quill Volley's better. Anything else? Probably Crushing Hands is better in spite of the fact that it objectively does less damage, okay? So I was looking on maxroll.gg the other day, which is probably the best starting place if you're looking to see a lot of builds and get an idea about like what build crafting is and how to do it. And they had a tier list of builds, and for pushing pits, they added an S+ tier because Spiritborn is so broken right now. And that S+ tier, though, I looked at it and I was like, oh, those are actually all the same build. It's all this build, okay? Quill Volley and Crushing Hands, it's the same build with just minor tweaks to use Crushing Hands instead of Quill Volley. And all the other builds that they had in that section, they're all just this build with minor tweaks to use a different core skill. So there are 4 core skills, and there are 2 potency skills that can become core skills if you pick the right skills. And each of those 6 spells can be the spam ability in this build, right? So you could, Quill Volley is one, Crushing Hands is one. Those are probably, so in order of like how good they are, for everything except high level pits, Crushing Hands is the best. For pushing higher level pits, Quill Volley is very clearly the best because the damage is the highest. After that, probably Payback is the next best one, I think. Then Touch of Death. Touch of Death is the one that's the most different from the others in this kind of family of builds because you have to tweak it a little bit to get it to do damage. What you're ultimately doing with Touch of Death is getting your little swarms to explode. So that's the one that's arguably maybe not this exact same build because there's enough difference, but that's the one that's most different from the others. It's right around Payback, I think. Maybe it's a little better than Payback. Those two are similar. One might be better than the other. And then the Rake and Stinger are both not quite as good. Rake is better than Stinger. I think Stinger is the worst one, the worst choice you can make for this, I think. But yeah, in general, I would say Crushing Hands, best for the vast majority of the game. Quill Volley, the objective, mathematical, like strongest one, highest damage build that there is, the best thing for clearing these higher level pits. So because those are all the same build, I'm going to go ahead and do a video of this build, how I do the Crushing Hands build, and I'm going to break down the whole thing, why I'm making selections. I'm going to do the gear, I'm going to do the skills, I'm going to do the Paragon points, I'm going to do the little things like mercenaries and consumables and what I'm tempering and like all of that stuff, and break down the entire thing in like detail. And then I'll talk a little bit about how you actually go about like tweaking it for the different core skills that you want to use, right? So this family of builds I'm going to do by showing my crushing hands build, and then talking about how you make these little tweaks to make it a Quill Volley build, or make it rake build, or make it payback build, or all of those things. And I'll talk about that. That's probably the next video that I'll do, where I break down and go into detail on how you do this family of builds, and hopefully that'll be enlightening, not just for this, but for build crafting in general. That's one of the most fun things in Diablo, I think, is figuring out what works, optimizing, trying to find builds and put things together for your character. Okay, so that'll be coming out. And in general, if you want to like hard farm, if you want to farm materials for another build so you can try things, or if you just want to have a build that smashes everything in the game, I would actually probably go with Crushing Hands over Quill Volley if I was you, unless what you want to do is see how high of a level of pit you can push. If that's the case, use Quill Volley. So get out there, give the minions of hell some whooping, give them hell, and I'll talk to you later.